Planning Committee meeting, the 1st of October 2024. I'm Councillor Phil Murphy, Chair of the committee, and Dale.
Councillor Dale Rook, Vice Chair.
Amy.
Amy Longford, Development Management Area Manager.
Philip Thomas, Development Services Manager.
Paige Mosley, Solicitor to Planning Committee.
Richard Ray, Paralegal.
Richard Williams, Democratic Services.
Richard, we've had a message that it's a bit quiet online. Can you turn it up? Is that better, Faye? Okay, we'll go to the minutes of the... No, we'll go to the apologies first. So, apologies for absence, Richard?
Just one apology, Chair, from Councillor McConnell.
Okay, thanks. And declarations of interest, as and when anybody. Can I have a proposer for the accuracy of the minutes of the previous meeting, please? Or Maureen and Sarah. Jill?
Just to say, if Councillor Riley can't make it, then apologies from her, please.
Okay. Can I remind everybody that from now on you use the hand up function in the chat and keep your cameras on so that we can make sure that you've been present during the discussion, otherwise you won't be able to vote. We've only got one application before us today. It's application DM 2023-01198, the erection of 2 additional poultry units and associated infrastructure on an established poultry farm at Coombe Farm in Shire Newton. Amy, you're presenting that?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. So yes, we put the presentation up, please. Sorry. So bear with us just a second. So this application is for 2 additional poultry sheds at the existing poultry farm at Coombe Farm. Coombe Farm is located just outside Shire Newton and is a working chicken farm of approximately 220,000 birds. The additional proposed sheds, which form this application, will increase the overall capacity to 300,000 birds. The principle of the development is considered to be acceptable and in line with LDP policies S10, RE4 and RE5, subject to specific criteria to protect amenity, landscape and the environment. So the site plan you can see on the presentation shows the location of the proposed sheds to the southeast of the site, adjacent to the existing 4 sheds. The ground slopes away from the buildings, and so the 2 new sheds will be on a lower level than existing. They are to match the existing sheds in terms of their materials and finishes. The next slide shows the landscaping and surface water drainage on site, identifying a drainage area to the front of the buildings and additional planting to the southeastern boundary. Following additional planting information in relation to a native hedgerow, there are no objections from the landscape officer. The next slide again shows a section of the site where the darker green sheds, the new sheds, are proposed to be located at a lower level. And the next slide shows the elevations and plans on the next side of the buildings. They will match the existing buildings in all respects. And then the next slide shows a section through the site in front of the sheds to show the levels and the proposed bund to the southeast. Again, following receipt of additional planting information, there are no objections from the landscape officer. So turning to the next slide, there have been a number of objections to the application, mainly in relation to odour and pollution. As described in detail in the officer's report, the application is supported by a manure and dirty water management plan. The solid waste is proposed to be collected and removed from the sheds via a tanker, which will transport the waste to an anaerobic digestion plant in Lydney. After each flock cycle, approximately 38 days, the sheds are cleaned and prepared for the next cycle. The wastewater from the sheds is proposed to be contained in dirty water tanks and then also removed from the site to be treated at Nash Water Treatment Plant in Newport. NRW have been consulted and are satisfied that the proposals to manage solid and wastewater from the site are acceptable and meet the current Control of Agricultural Pollution Regulation Standards 2021. NRW have also granted a permit for the site for up to 300,000 birds. However, NRW do raise concerns, which are shared by the local authority's biodiversity officer, that the current COAPR standards are not suitable for the managing of phosphates, and so they object to the development. Their concerns relate to the fate of the digestate once it reaches the anaerobic digester, and they consider that the COAPR standards to be insufficient to manage this. Whilst this is considered to be important, this is beyond the scope of the planning application process. If the standards set by Welsh Government in terms of agricultural pollution are considered to be insufficient, it is necessary for the standards to change. But at present, this application meets the current standards set by Welsh Government. Reference is made to a number of other applications for large-scale poultry farming in Powys which have received holding objections from Welsh Government. Having reviewed these applications, they predominantly relate to applications that are within the phosphate-sensitive areas or directly affect a SAC or SSI. The application before you today is not within a phosphate-sensitive catchment area, and the impact on the SSI can be managed effectively. So turning to the next slide. In relation to the SSI, to the west of the site, Coombe Valley Woods and Dinham Meadows, NRW have responded to state that the ammonia report published in relation to the application was dated in 2021. So if you could just move to the next slide as well, there's some more information there for you to read while I'm presenting. Whilst they would normally like more up-to-date information, they have their own records that state that the levels of ammonia have reduced from 2021 to 2024. They also acknowledge that the proposed heat exchangers for the units, if fitted to all 6 units, would further reduce the emissions and so have no objection in relation to ammonia or the impact on the SSI. Therefore, it is proposed to add a condition to secure that the heat exchangers are fitted across all 6 units. Odour from the site has also been considered by the authority's environmental health officer, who has stated that the odour impact study identifies that the odour impact will fall below the Environment Agency's H4 odour management guidance benchmark and do not object to the proposals. Objections have also been raised that pollution prevention measures should be applied to all existing operations. However, these wider measures cannot be applied retrospectively through the planning process to already existing buildings and processes. Permitting and pollution prevention is a consideration for NRW, who, with Welsh Government, set the appropriate standards. The application before members today is for 2 additional sheds and seeks pollution compliance for the current standards for these sheds only. The exception being the heat exchangers fitted to all 6 sheds to achieve embetterment of ammonia levels, which is a separate standard and in particular seeks to manage the impact on the adjacent SSI. In addition, if we could turn to the next slide please, I refer members to the proposed condition 3. This is concerned with the compliance of the manure and dirty water management plan. This secures the operations on site of the 2 additional units to maintaining the current standards set by Welsh Government. Welsh Government are currently reviewing these standards, and so, should this affect the operations at Coombe Farm in the future, causing changes to the way that water and solid waste is managed on site, the management plan would need to be updated, and triggering this to be submitted to and reviewed by the local planning authority. So the next slides show some pictures of the site, this is the access to the site. With the increase in potentially 80,000 birds, this will increase HGV movements by approximately 472 per annum. This results in an approximately 1.3 additional movements per day. However, they will peak at certain times within the flock cycle. For example, movements will be batched around day 1 for chick delivery and around day 30 for thinning. But they have no objections from the local authority's highways officer. The next couple of slides then show the buildings from the entranceway, and you can see the existing sheds and silos, and another photograph is a close-up picture of where the proposed sheds will be going on the slightly lower level. So in conclusion, the proposed development is in accordance with the policies set out in the LDP to manage these rural activities, in particular policy RE5. The management of livestock is highly regulated by NRW via separate regulations and standards set by Welsh Government. The proposals, as confirmed by NRW, meet these current standards set out in the Control of Agricultural Pollution Regulations 2021. The development is evidenced with suitable management plans and mitigation to ensure that it meets the current standards. NRW is concerned that the current standards are insufficient to manage phosphates. However, they are the current standards which the application does meet. It is considered that the regulation should be reconsidered by Welsh Government and more detailed requirements put in place to manage the effects of phosphates. However, this is not within the remit of this planning application, and therefore the application is recommended for approval, subject to the proposed conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. We're just having a look. Sue Riley has managed to join us, but she's lost us again, and now she's back again. Unfortunately, Sue, that means you won't be able to vote, but yeah, sorry about that. We've got an objection from Shinneton Community Council, but nobody registered to speak. However, Councillor Brown, the local member, wishes to speak. So, Councillor Brown, you have 4 minutes plus 2 at the end, or you can take 6 at the beginning if you wish.
Okay, thank you. I hope that you've read the objections from the Shire Newton Community Council and my own objections which have not been addressed. I am concerned in this application about the manure and dirt waste management plan not extending to the 4 existing units and only to the 2 new units.
Councillor Brown, can I...
Sorry, can I carry on and I can explain why this is relevant? Can you stop the time, please?
No.
And I can explain why this is relevant in planning terms if you allow me to carry on, Councillor Murphy.
Okay, but please be aware we are looking at the 2 new units. We are not going back over the existing units. Carry on.
Right, I hope my time hasn't been altered by that. Thank you. Whereas the heat exchangers do apply to all 6 units to reduce the amount of ammonia on old units to 35%, but no data is given for the new units, it is very relevant in planning terms to fully consider the cumulative impact of the poultry units. This important point was made in a reminder to local authorities by a letter dated 2018 by the Chief Planning Officer and is reiterated in paragraph 5.6.9 of Planning Policy Wales 12, and so I hope that both planning officers and the chairman will not restrict debate. Shire Newton Community Council indicated that the manure management plan should include ongoing regular monitoring of stream water and aquifers and of air pollution, which it does not, and a condition limiting lorry movements to the working week, both for construction works and operation of the facility. The lorry movements have not been limited to the working week into condition 10, not only for construction but for normal lorry movement activities, and this needs to be addressed. The Chief Planning Officer letter also mentions guides for use by local planning authorities and NRW. The Manure Management Planning Guide Note GN021 on poultry units for local authorities and NRW states there should be calculations for the total of both nitrogen and phosphate produced from proposed poultry units. The Manure Management Plan in Condition 10 says this is submitted in June 2023, but unless I missed it, I could find no trace of such plan on the website, which should be publicly available. The only thing I could find was a very short letter dated the 23rd of August 2023. Local concerns have been raised in relation to both the odour and pollution, and on hot days local people may not be able to sit outside, thereby impacting residential amenity contrary to policy EP1 of our current adopted local plan. The nearest brook is at Castro Brook, where emergency overflow may be drained. The brook goes into Nedden Brook to Caldicot and then to the sea. There is an ammonia report, but there is a gap with the regulations not covering phosphates, leading to a number of poultry farm planning applications being on hold by the Welsh Government government planning a review, according to a letter from Julie Janes. The site is only 1.5 kilometres from Shire Newton, and on hot days local residents may not wish to sit outside because of the odours at certain times. And then there is a query, obviously, on site by a local person as to whether or not the permit was for 200,000 birds or 220,000 birds. The planning report glosses over the concerns of both the Woodland Trust to object to the application in view of the vicinity to ancient woodlands and impact of ammonia, and also the holding objection of the biodiversity officer, giving potential grounds for refusal of this application in that biodiversity officer report. The biodiversity officer maintains their concerns on wider ecosystem resilience as a result of phosphate and ammonia. The report mentions 5 internationally designated special areas of conservation within 10 kilometres, and there are 95 sites of importance for nature conservation and 1462 HA of ancient woodland, and within 2 kilometres of the proposal. Receptor locators in the Coombe Valley Woodland SSI, existing ammonia levels are already exceeding the upper threshold of critical load, greater than 8%. The modelling shows a slight betterment as a result of the installation of heat exchangers, but all receptors either exceed the upper threshold or were within the critical load of post-development. Basically, it also says that where ammonia thresholds are between 1 to 8% or exceed 8% and existing background ammonia is exceeded, applications should look for control measures that can reduce levels to avoid exceedance. Where control measures are not available, the application could potentially be refused. Woodland Trust have objected to the proposal and suggest that further control measures to reduce the ammonia emissions should be included in the proposal. However, NRW have set a lower standard and have not objected to the proposal on the basis of aerial emissions, citing the slight betterment in current conditions for reasons. The biodiversity officer agrees with the comments from the Woodland Trust that in accordance with PPW12, ancient and semi-natural woodland are to be afforded protection from development. However, we acknowledge that NRW are the statutory consultee. Hence, I would recommend the application is refused as the management of manure and waste management plan is either inadequate or unavailable and contrary to the guide note for LPAs and NRW. The condition 3 refers to a plan dated June 2023, and I cannot find anything on the application site for that date. The only thing I can find marked manure and dirty water management plan is a very short letter dated the 23rd of August 2023, which does not even conform to the suggested comment in 6.13 of this report that it will be sealed by lorries as delivered by tractor and sheeted trailer. If you look at our local adopted plan, then policies EP1 on amenity and EP2 are also relevant. I would like to speak prior to the vote, please, Jem.
There's quite a few comments there, so hopefully I'll be able to answer most of those comments. I think a lot of what you have raised has been covered in the report and also in the presentation. And just to make it very clear that NRW, who are, as you say, are our statutory advisors in relation to pollution, phosphates, ammonia, etc., have seen manure and management, dirty water management plan, and they have accepted that, and they do say that it meets the standards. So, and as we said, that the manure and waste management plan is for the 2 units. It is not for the existing 4. As we've said, again, we can't retrospectively apply those policies. We have to apply the regulations that are related to the proposals that are put in front of us. The ammonia, as mentioned, NRW have been quite clear on this point, that there has been a decrease in ammonium levels. However, they have asked for the 6 heat exchangers to be fitted to all the poultry units, which will result in a slight betterment. And as I say, they are our advisors. It is that advice that we have taken on board and that we are moving forward. The letters you mentioned in relation to Julie James, in relation to cumulative impact, we've been through that letter, and as I say, been through the other applications that the holding objections relate to. They relate to mainly to applications that are within phosphate sensitive areas, and we accept that the current regulations are limited in relation to phosphates. However, those are the regulations. This application is outside a phosphate sensitive area, so while we are very accepting of that and sympathetic to that, we have to determine the application in line with the standards that are set in front of us and in line with the guidance that is provided by our statutory advisor, which again is NRW, and they accept this. In relation to odour, the Environmental Health Officer has considered this and has considered the odour impact study, which again, as I mentioned earlier, it complies with the H4 odour management guidance benchmark, and they raise no objections. Again, I note the comments in relation to the biodiversity officer and NRW's objections, and they are related and referenced in the report, but they again do relate to the substandard COAPR regulations, which is not within the control of the planning application. I think those are most of the points that are covered.
Amy, can you give the reference for that report? I just saw it comes through now. Phil sent it through.
Oh, sorry. The manure and dirty water plan is online, dated the 25th of August 2023.
Go to.
I wouldn't call, sorry, Chairman, but I wouldn't call that a plan. It's about a few lines in a very short letter.
Councillor Brown, you've had your 6 minutes. Can I now give the courtesy to the members of the committee? Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Chair. There seems to be a question here about whether this will actually result in an increase in the number of birds on the site. The environmental permit for the expansion was granted in 2021, but what we heard yesterday is that the chickens are raised under contract to Avara, which I understand has adopted the Better Chicken standard, and therefore the stocking densities will increase. Sorry, the stocking densities will decrease. The amount of space afforded to each chicken during its life will increase, and as a result, the increased having additional sheds on the site will mean that the farm can continue raising a similar number of chickens to what it does at the moment. Can we have some clarity about that, and would it be appropriate to a condition, since the concerns around environment seem to relate to the projected increased number of chickens on the site and not the existence of 2 more sheds to keep them in?
Yeah, so just to confirm, this is an application for 2 additional chicken sheds, which would potentially increase the total population of chickens within those sheds to around 300,000 birds. If during the operations and with separate standards that the space requirements for each chicken increases and therefore the overall capacity available within those sheds decreases, that's absolutely fine. That's in terms of how the operator will manage those sheds. If then they decide they want to have 300,000 birds, but they will need an additional shed to put those in, we would need a separate planning application to provide this space for up to 300,000 sheds. But because at the moment the requirements are what they are, the lower standards, this application is proposing up to 300,000 birds.
And am I correct in understanding, sorry Chair, if I may, am I correct in understanding that the Better Chicken standard is although it's been adopted by Avara and by the majority of the supermarkets, it is not yet a legal minimum for chickens raised in the UK. So there would be the potential for an increase in the number of chickens back up to the 300,000.
Yes, this application is proposing a level of up to 300,000 chickens. The waste and dirty water management plan is based on 300,000 chickens, and the HGB movements proposed are based under 300,000 chickens. If the operator has less than that, then obviously that would be less. But yes, if we wouldn't be able to control that they have to meet the chickens' space standards via this particular application. That is a separate set of regulations dealt with separately.
And could not be the subject of a condition?
No, it wouldn't be appropriate really to, duplicate separate standards.
Thank you.
I do understand where your question's coming from, though, because from the information that was provided on site, it was unlikely that there'd be an increase in the number of birds. This would just enable them to maintain the number of birds, albeit that the licence says that they can have 300,000. That was my understanding on site. Whether that's right or not, I don't know, but that was my understanding. Councillor Bryn.
Thank you, Chair. Because there were a number of objections on the ammonia front, including from the Woodlands Trust and our own biodiversity officers. I did try to take a look at the ammonia study on there, and I know you said that it's out of date from because it's from 2021, but it's obviously the only report on there relating to the ammonia. But I must admit, I did struggle with it. There wasn't a non-technical study at the beginning of the report, which would have been helpful, and I couldn't get the fundamental numbers to add up, which left me with no confidence that the report modelling figures correct, and their conclusions didn't seem to agree with their figures. So I just like confirmation that these detrimental harms can be controlled before I can be confident to approve this. And, that the NRW were using the figures in this report to recommend, to say that it was, that the development would be fine, or whether they were using their own figures. Thank you.
In relation to the ammonia, NRW again have our body who we would refer to provide us with this guidance. They have reviewed it. They did note that they would normally have asked for a more up-to-date report. The report was dated 2021. However, they do have their own figures and their own understanding of the background concentrations of ammonia, and they have confirmed that has declined, and they provide the data. I think it was up on the slide as well, and it's referenced in the officer's report. And they specifically relate that into relation to the impact of the SSSI on Coombe Valley Woods and Dinham Meadows. Again, this is their advice, and they have accepted that there is cross-checking with their data. There is a reduction in ammonia levels, and the installation of the 6 heat exchangers will therefore improve the situation and continue to ensure that ammonia levels decrease and that those concentrations are considered acceptable by NRW. I just go back to reinforce the point that NRW are our advisors here, and they have no objection in relation to ammonia.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just concerned because I said there appear to be a number of errors in that report, and my worry was that they'd use those figures. But thank you.
Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Amy, for your presentation. Having looked at the officer's report and the associated documents to the application, I note that there are some concerns from local Shire Newton Community Council and the local ward member regarding pollution and its effect on the watercourse and wildlife. I also note from the report that there were no objections from Monmouthshire County Council's environmental health officers, or indeed no objections from Natural Resources Wales, who are the regulators regarding this. My understanding is that there are 4 other poultry units which have been operating for a considerable number of years on the site. And to my knowledge, there have been no incidents to date regarding pollution to which could have affected the local watercourse. Now, this tells me that this established poultry unit operates responsibly within the law and has good housekeeping operations when it comes to hygiene, waste management and pollution. I believe that this is a positive thing when looking at the potential expansion of this business by 2 further poultry units. I believe that it is important to understand that no farmer actually wants to pollute watercourses or cause harm to wildlife. Indeed, I am yet to meet a farmer who does not care about the land for fauna. After all, farmers' livelihoods depend on good upkeep and care of the land and watercourses that livestock could drink or feed from. And to my knowledge, the applicant also farms other livestock which surrounds the units and the fields locally, and therefore is unlikely to want to cause any harm to either the soil or the watercourse. I noticed that there are conditions within the report to mitigate any potential pollution or accidents that could happen, and I'm satisfied that these mitigation measures are satisfactory, as outlined by the officer who has compiled the report. Farmers and growers in this country put food on our table, and we should support them as best we can where necessary and also where planning policy allows. Poultry units such as this have to go somewhere. Our population in the UK is increasing, and therefore the demand on the growth of the food industry will naturally increase too. We cannot be adverse to producing British food for British people and the British population. I hope that some of my colleagues won't mind me mentioning that they were alive during the Second World War when food was rationed and therefore scarce. And because we are an island, we relied on our farmers and our food producers then, we continue to rely on them now. And as you know, there are many benefits to sourcing foods locally, such as carbon emissions. There are times when we have to embrace growth, and I believe that this is one of them. I'm satisfied that there are no objections from the key stakeholders that have been consulted on this application, and that it complies with the planning policy. And I'm therefore happy to support the officer's recommendation, which is for approval of this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McKenna. And when it comes to it, I'll record it that you recommended approval. Councillor Webb.
Yes, thank you. Councillor McKenna has made some of the points that I'm about to make, but I'm going to make them again. Obviously, this has been a hugely successful business, as Councillor McKenna has said. And if you can't have chicken sheds in an area like this, I don't know where you can have them. I wish I could remember the figures relating to the eggs imported into this country at the moment. I know that we need to import more eggs to keep our our requirements up, but I can't remember. You don't know this, Amy, do you? The eggs that we import? No. From experience, living in the countryside and having 2 chicken farms fairly near where I live, you expect to get these odours from time to time. They disappear within 3 days, and if it rains, within a day. And living in the countryside, these odours are part of it, I think. And I would like to second the proposal that we accept this, the recommendation that the officers have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Webb. Councillor Hells.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. I share some of the concerns of the County Council and the Ward Councillor as well. And I do note the officer's previous comments and those of NRW who state that they have no concerns in relation of the air quality. I would like to seek assurance that there will be some ongoing regular monitoring of the nearby streams, watercourses, along with air quality monitoring to ensure that they are not being contaminated in the future. Likewise, with the vehicle movement, I note the officers saying that, or Amy sort of saying there'll be an extra 1.3 vehicle movements per day. Will there be a condition limiting lorry movements? And will this be limited to the working week for the operation of the facility? And also, is there going to be a construction vehicle movement plan as well in place? And finally, I noticed the flood management team has said that the SUDS proposal is not acceptable, but they're working for an improvement. Has this now been submitted? Is there an acceptable SUDS proposal in place? Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
No problem. Yeah, in relation to ongoing monitoring, this is done by NRW. Let's refer back to the ammonia report. That's how they know that the ammonia levels have been reduced in the area, because there is ongoing monitoring. In relation to the HGV movements, there is a condition requiring that all HGV movements are carried out within the existing approved HGV routing plan. So that's making sure that they are entering and exiting site with as least kind of impact as it is. This doesn't restrict it to the working week. I'm not quite sure there is a need to do that. That has not been raised as an objection. Obviously, there's quite a significant amount of HGV movements coming in and out of site already for the existing 4 units, and the additional 1.3 movements per day on average has not been raised as an objection by our highways officers. Again, there isn't a condition for a construction traffic management plan. Again, I think that's based on the fact that all HGV movements, there's a lot of heavy goods vehicles coming in and out of site at the moment, and they are managed in an appropriate play at present. And in relation to SUDS, SUDS officers have looked at the proposals. They have said that they have some concerns over the proposals at the moment in relation to achieving SUDS. However, they do offer confidence that that can be achieved. Just to remind members that SUDS or SAB approval is a separate approving process, and you can grant planning permission without SAB approval. They will need to come in for SAB approval separately. The SAB officers are aware of it, are happy to work with them, and we're confident we can achieve that. If there are amendments to the planning application that are required to achieve SUDS, then they will need to come back and get those reviewed and approved separately, if that's required in a separate application, depending on what those changes are. Just to note that in late correspondence, the reason for the construction environmental management plan was missing, and just to reiterate that in the late correspondence, the reason was to safeguard the habitats and species protected under the Conservation of Habitats and Species Regulations 2017 and the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981 as amended, and the Environmental Wales Act 2016, which is a bit of a mouthful. No problem.
Thanks for that. I don't know who number 6 was on my list, but Councillor Butler.
That's myself. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay, Jill. You go now, and then I'll call Jan in after.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So yesterday, when we were talking to the manager owner, they were talking about vehicle movements going along specialised tracks, which we actually saw ourselves, avoiding many roadways. So at least they're trying hard to get it off the road, so that's good. I just wondered, and you might know what the answer this, be able to answer this. So the heat exchangers are abating, or almost abatement processes to take out some of the ammonia. I wonder where that goes. Does it become part of the dirty water, or is it adsorbed onto the heat exchanger, and that means the heat exchangers then need to be regenerated? And where would they then be regenerated, please? Does anyone know?
Amy?
That is a very good question. I've got to be honest, I'm not entirely sure the life cycle of the heat exchangers and where the ammonia goes. I can refer us back again to the paragraph and our reference from NRW, the correspondence from them. They are happy and they are considering that the heat exchangers as proposed are suitable mitigation and while it will achieve betterment. I would suspect that they would need, those heat exchangers will need to meet the current standards in terms of ammonia. And again, that is something separately regulated by NRW. The chicken sheds and the operations on site are managed and regularly reviewed by NRW, and I suspect that will be picked up as part of that separate process.
Of course, I was just asking for. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair. Does it not say that they just keeps it drier within, so that the ammonia doesn't turn into a gas, and so it stays within the building itself? Is that not what it said in the documentation on heat exchangers? It just keeps it drier.
Yeah, that could well be the case. I would have to go back to the ammonia report in detail to fully understand how effective or how the heat exchangers actually work. But I think in terms of this application, we're satisfied that NRW do not have any objections in relation to ammonia and are satisfied with the operations of the heat exchangers.
Because if it keeps it dry, it's got to go somewhere. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. And now you've mentioned it, Councillor Payne, I recall reading something along those lines. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, if you've know anyone who's chicken farming, when the birds are culled at the end of the cycle, they will be allowed to go to bed and roost, basically, so they're very quiet before you collect them. So at certain times of the year, that could be 3 o'clock in the morning. So for a lot of people, they won't even be aware that there's been any movement going on. So that's the first one. It seems to me that these heat exchangers will then be retrospectively fitted. I think I'm right in that, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong. So in the long term, actually, we should expect the decrease of the ammonia levels, which will protect the woodland and protect the lichens, which are particularly affected by ammonia. So I'm in support of this because I think that's going to be the long term. And let's just hope that the Welsh Government legislation sort of catches up. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Amy.
There was one question there, just to confirm that, yes, all 6 units will then have a heat exchanger, and that is required as per condition number 11. On the officer's report.
Okay, thank you for that. I've got nobody else with their hands up. So we've had, sorry?
I said I was going to speak, but they both. Sorry. I was going to speak, but everybody said all the things I was going to say, so thank you very much.
Okay.
All I want to do is to propose that we...
No, yeah, well, thanks for that, Councillor Pell, but during the discussion we had a recommendation for approval from Councillor McKenna, and that was seconded by Councillor Webb. But Amy, in view of the fact that we've got additional conditions, do you just want to make absolutely clear what the committee is being asked to vote for? It was the amendments, wasn't it?
Yes, just to confirm, the application is for the erection of 2 additional poultry units and associated infrastructure on the established poultry farm at Coombe Farm, Coombe Mill. The conditions are all outlined in the officer's report and in late correspondence, with the revised wording for condition 3 and the reason for condition 10 added on. I can read out these extra pieces, but it was displayed in the presentation and we have referred to the condition 10 if you want me to read them out to be sure.
Yes, please.
So condition 3 states that all solid waste generated by the development hereby approved shall be exported to an appropriately licensed anaerobic digester facility. All dirty waters to a licensed wastewater treatment works. No solid waste or wastewater, treated or untreated, shall be spread directly onto any land. Documentary records demonstrating receipt of all exported material by the anaerobic digester facility shall be maintained by the operator of the development, hereby approved, and be made available to the local planning authority on request. The development shall comply at all times with the manure and dirty water plan submitted by Ian Pick Associates Limited, dated June 2023. If any elements of the manure and dirty water plan change in the future, in particular the final destination of any solid or waste water, a new manure and dirty water management plan must be submitted to the local planning authority, and operations in sheds 5 and 6 hereby approved shall cease until the new management plan is approved in writing by the local planning authority, with a reason to ensure that the waste from the farm is properly disposed of both now and in the future so as to avoid any pollution to the environment. And the reason for condition 10, which states that to safeguard habitats and species protected under the Conservation of Habitats and Species Regulations 2017, the Wildlife Countryside Act 1981 and the Environment Wales Act 2016.
Okay, thanks very much.
Chairman, could I just say in relation to condition 3, I could find nothing on the website for June 2023 for a manure and dirty water management plan. All I could find was a letter dated the 23rd of August 2023 and it was a very short letter on it, and that's all I could find on the website. So I think you need to clarify if there's a separate management plan that we haven't actually seen before making a decision, or if that is it. Thank you.
If I could answer that, yeah, quickly. The manure and dirty water management plan is online. It was posted in August, so that it will have the date of 25th of August 2023, but within the report it states that plan is dated June 2023. Also, it will be annotated as an approved document if committee approve the application and a decision notice is issued by us.
And it's just that very short letter, is
Councillor
it?
Brown.
I just wanted to clarify, is it just that very short letter?
Brown.
Thank you.
Can we have the voting function up, please, Richard? Can everybody vote no, please? Yeah, we're one short, so you're right. No, well, you'll be the one then. So, Paige. Yeah. Do you want to state what your vote is?
Yes, I vote for it.
For approval. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so that's 12 for approval and 2 abstains.
Right, thank you everybody. We've got one more item on the agenda now, and that's the appeals results. And I think, Phil, are you going to deal with that?
I think that just the appeals we've received, it was the April to May, June, July period. Some of those have actually been determined by now, so apologies for reporting them a little bit late. We would have reported them last month, but there wasn't a meeting. But yeah, the one at the Haven, I know we reported previously as it was dismissed, so just for members to note the appeals received, and we'll probably be publishing the next quarters in November, at November meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. That brings us to the end of the meeting then. So thanks very much everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. See you soon.